the Operation Orange Cone, which we highlight in yellow, 4.3 miles or 4.5.
We did rated all the streets
Yeah, all the
that we
streets.
received from commission members.
How do we get this out?
The streets that were less than 300 rating.
Yeah.
That's what we selected for
If you've added to the list, how do we get a copy of that list?
We can send it, we can send it.
I mean, 'cause-
Yeah.
And I gave a bunch of streets down in
We all
the Midtown area.
We all
too.
put some on.
I mean, I'm not talking about just Bellhaven.
It wasn't-
Well, it's like you said, that we had that work session meeting. Well, it wasn't a work session meeting, but we had a meeting where you and I were asking questions.
Right.
And a couple of guys reminded us, but that was right before Director Powell left.
Mhm.
We were we had some discussion about a work session.
And we learned a lot about how that list was
Comes
made.
together,
Was-
yeah.
And it made some
formulated.
sense, but I mean,
It doesn't make any sense if the street's not even on there.
right, well, that's why we added some streets to it.
They
Yeah,
did.
But my question is, we ought not have to add streets that we see. Why, do we have an inventory of
That's
streets?
what they're compiling, or I hope it's
It's
compiled.
compiled. There's a list of.
We need to.
So we need, so that's something.
Initially, we rated.
Here, look, I think what we should do is consider what this work session needs to look like. And then we can come back and have a work session where we're not.
Here's your new text from 734265.
What we want to potentially be able to look at to vote on, whatever the case may be. Yes, sir.
And let's get the material that we're gonna look at in that work session to us ahead of time. And one thing too, by the way, and I was gonna ask this, we got that big list of all these streets in town, it's little sections, and talk about from here to here and little sections. If we could get that in an electronic spreadsheet thing so that you could, like it's got High Street in 4 different segments. You have this segment and it's rated here. And if there's a way you could take and sort it and play with it and put all High Street together and see how this segment's rated at 90 and this one's at 30. I mean, if we could get that in electronic, and also so you could expand it where you could read it. You know, if there's a way to get it in electronic format, it would be nice.
Okay.
Maybe even in a Google Drive where, as they're updating it real time, we can go back and
Yep.
look.
Yeah, but just the list we've got is of all the streets, the ones that's got the PCI and the traffic count and all that on it.
That's a CFP.
Yeah, but that thing, you can't go through there and
that was.
it talks about so many segments.
Well, I know, there on the list that we talked about with y'all that day, like in Ward 1, you and I took a couple different days and we drove as many streets as we could drive in Ward 1. It was raining one of those days. But we found streets that weren't even on the, so it's a 300, if it was on 300 or below, it's like, it was a candidate. And we saw some that weren't on the list.
That's what I'm talking about. You weren't in here when I talked about that.
So then they went out and they go, yeah, you're right, that was
But
not
there's
on,
no
and it's a
street.
150.
Originally, we were going by the list that city did ratings back in 2007.
Right.
That was our base list to start with. But we did add all the streets that we received from commission members.
I don't want to add all the streets from commission members, I want to add all the streets. I mean, I didn't go through and name every street in Bellhaven, I gave the ones I could think of off the top of my head. But just because I named Lindcrest and didn't name Linden, Wayne Linden, and the same thing's true when I was down there in the Midtown area, when I realized a lot of those are where they put construction.
That was the base list we started with.
And I think what
we
we
will be
came
adding the
up,
streets.
what he and I came to conclusion on after talking to them was, so they have a rating system that, so you can come up with a list that has 2,000 streets that are 300 and below. And then that's about 65% of the scoring. And then the other part is totally subjective.
My point is, if the street's not even on the list at all, it doesn't get there. Then I get to a second point. Every street in Bellhaven has the utilities running underneath it. In St. Mary Street, I saw one on the list that was rated, and it talks about we need to replace the water line because it's had breaks and the street's bad. St. Mary's had 30 breaks in a 2-block area, but we're not going to fix it because it's got a water line problem underneath it. I don't like that process that says because we don't want to repave it because it's got a bad water line, let's fix a water line and repave it, because if you've had 30 breaks in a 2-block system,
You just got to do it in that order.
you can do them together, we're doing others together. But we ought not eliminate the street because it's got water line problems underneath it, which is the priority that they've said we can get to this quicker. Well, if the reason the street's so bad is because the water line underneath is so bad, I don't object to saying fix them at the same time.
Well, should that be the thought process moving forward as relationship?
Well, you can't, if you just isolate that as the thought process going forward, then what you end up doing is we only end up doing 4 projects a year because you're gonna spend $4 million just to do one. I think that we should consider whether the urgent needs sound. If you got something with 30 breaks, to me that sounds urgent.
That's been over a few years.
Well, yeah. So you can, I mean, you consider that. I don't think personally that we take on. We only have $33 million, and 30 of that's obligated already. We haven't even leveraged for anything additional. So at this point, what we're trying to do is to get things, stop hemorrhaging as much as we can, and then try to deal with what Pete's talking
I
about.
don't disagree with you that if he's up the budget. I disagree with saying let's don't even look at it at all because it's got a water line.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that.
Yeah, but that's kind of that's what Keisha said. Well,
Keisha ain't here.
I understand, but I'm just saying, so it kind of set the tone, and I'm not blaming it on Keisha. She said we can get to these others, and we got plenty of them to fix, and so, you know, and Ted, in fact, said it too, so I won't blame it all on Keisha. He said it to me, that, you know, we're gonna put a priority on the ones that don't have utility problems underneath it. Well, then that leaves the ones that do forever in bad shape and just getting worse.
Well, unless they can, the utility cut repair could be something that would, if those are a street that has so many cuts on it, they can't do a whole new water line, but at least we can make sure the asphalt is.
Ooh, I got an idea. Why won't we create a new category? So there can, so we got 4, right? We got 4 categories so far: drainage, resurfacing, water, and something else. All right, so why don't we create one where we're doing both resurfacing and utility replacement?
We've actually done that on about 3 projects already, if I'm not mistaken.
But no, it was actually just a water line replacement, and as a result of that, we came back and did some resurfacing. It wasn't a total reconstruction to include utility replacement or
Because we were replacing the bridge on Hanging Mouse to fix the water line.
But for the street you're talking about,
I'm just saying that we need to replace a bridge, and the water line was bad, so we added the water line to it.
well, what I'm saying is the approach. Let's look at the approach differently. Let's just say we're going to do on this street a total, not only resurfacing, but a total reconstruction, which would include utility, either repair or replacement on that street. And that way we know we've got a pot of money that's strictly for those big jobs versus saying that it's not a priority.
Yeah. I don't care whether you category or not, Mayor. I just want to recognize that eliminates those by saying it was a priority to do the others. I would make this suggestion, though, for what I'm particularly talking about those streets in Bellhaven. If we're going to do Riverside Drive and replace the 36 to 16-inch lines or whatever they are, could that project be expanded to say, take those lines in the first 2 blocks off of there where they're coming into the neighborhood, where they're busting so bad, be replaced and fix the paving at the same time?
Get all that water pressure on them, they're probably gonna break.
They're gonna break anyway. I mean,
That new water
you're gonna have to go in there and tie into them anyway.
Those lines are very close to the plan anyway, so.
They what?
There'll have to be tie-ins, and once you get further into the neighborhood, then you have to do all the service connections as well.
I understand.
So it may be prudent to have one project that's your big, do the road, do the water line, your mains that have very few connections other than side streets, and then have a separate contract that's replace the cast iron water lines and all those services down through there, and then mill and overlay.
Well, knowing that we're not gonna have $10 million to do Riverside in time the next few years, I don't really wanna wait till we get all that to get the streets fixed. I just wanna see that the orange cone list has all these streets added to it.
So we can consider all of them.
And I realize all those I'm naming, half of them are gonna say no because they got water lines underneath them, so we can't fix them this year.
But at least they're on the list.
But I wanna say that just because they got water line problems underneath them, if the water lines are that bad,
But at the very least, there should be pavement in that utility cut so they're not driving over dirt, because there are quite a few blocks like you're describing.
Yeah.
In Bellhaven off the riverside.
I was just trying to offer a.
I agree, and that might be the best way to do it, I
It's
don't
not a
know.
bad idea.
Plus, my wife challenged me to be less of an ass, so I'm working on that.
Maybe you need to find me a watch.
Yeah,
to do that.
so-
You're a lost
Follow
cause.
suit.
All right. Almost 4, let's roll.
Main Street resurfacing, city bid out, Superior Asphalt came with the lowest bid, around 4.7 million, 4.4 million, and the council has approved that. At this current time, we're waiting for Superior to provide all of their, execute contracts and insurance.
Mr. Charles, can you take 30 seconds and maybe describe exactly what sections of each street we're talking about? Northside Drive, McRaven.
Northside Drive will be from Edgar Evers to Sunset. McRaven will be west of Wiggins out to Buddy Butts Park in the city limits. Raymond Road will be from Forest Hill to Castle Hill / West Highland. Gallatin will be from the railroad at Porter Street to South Street. Ridgewood Road will be from Old Canton North to County Line Road. And Briarwood Drive will be from State Street to, I believe, I-55.
Thank you.
And then we also had an ad option for Greenway if the budgets came out right. One option was west of 18, the other option was east of 18, and actually the bids came in well, and we accepted both of those ad options to repave both sides of Greenway.
Can you tell me, IMS told me that 2 months ago, West Street was on there, that got added to the original list, and then it got taken off. What was the theory? I think it was West Street.
I don't know about that.
Don't know about
My
West
First time
Street.
hearing about West Street.
Where's Greenway?
Greenway.
Oh,
Like Greenway may have been on and off, and we put it back in the ad option.
Where is it?
So Greenway is both.
About Walmart.
Yeah,
Walmart,
Walmart on
yeah.
18.
Got it.
yeah.
So you got that, and then there's a heavy industrial area down in there that
Behind Lowe's.
yeah,
Right.
behind low pipe supply and
What comes all the way across
Yeah.
from the old Home Depot to, whatever, behind the Metro.
No, that's not, this just goes from Maddox Road
Maddox to 18.
to Lowe's to 18 to Walmart to Robinson, right by Street.
That's right, okay, I'm sorry, you're right.
And both sides were horrible. And
Oh,
given the
horrible.
volume, going to Walmart, going to Lowe's, industrial uses, we need to at least put that on as an ad option if the money worked out right. Accept one or both, and fortunately, both accepted.
Good job.
Came out good.
I thought we were gonna go through the list. It says start on, anticipated work start October 16th. How long to do those 6 streets is that actually gonna take? We're talking about a few weeks each.
It is together 180 days to the 6 streets, and an additional 30 days for each side of Greenway. So altogether 240.
About 6 months, 6 to 9 months. And we will have to take care of the ADA and the sidewalk on the streets that goes, like on Ridgewood, like on Gallatin, like on parts of Raymond.
Let me ask something. So we just doing one street at a time, or how's that?
I mean, it depends on how many crews they put toward,
However many speeds.
but it's a package deal.
All right, I'm just asking because you're saying 6 months to resurface streets.
You're gonna lose the one of us.
It's not technical in a resurfacing, well, because there's some ADA issues too, there's some signals, some stuff with signal.
Signal
signalization.
but
Yeah.
bulk of it's mill and overlay and sidewalk work.
I guess I'm just saying because for example, whoever just did Woody, they knocked Woody out like it wasn't nothing, and we're saying 6 months to do 6 streets.
Woody Mill?
Yeah.
Yep, they milled Woody.
Yes, Woody was.
That was too. It's 11.
Well, y'all did some minor
Yeah.
something to level. It wasn't no real milling.
I think though, Mayor, to be cautious is when some of these streets, for instance, like Gallatin,
Yeah.
it's gonna take some work. And you know, they're gonna have to go in, build all the asphalt out,
Some cutouts.
Being-
clean out all the
That won't be
joints,
fine on Gallagher.
seal it, and then also too, working in
Just go.
the ADA compliance. So
Can
they're
you
gonna,
tell them
it's
to
gonna
do
take
that
some
first?
time. It's just gonna take some time.
Actually, during the bidding process, the contractor was out, they were asking for more time, actually. They thought that was too short.
Can they do Gallatin first? I think everybody will be happy.
I'm sure they will.
Bring that up at the
Yeah.
pre-construction.
No matter where you stop.
I just, you know, would hate to see them one streeting it at a time. That's just my thoughts.
We can ask, I mean, when we go to the pre-construction, we can ask them for a schedule.
Okay. All right.
Is that the 6 months, so that doesn't even include the winter months, right? I mean, is that gonna impact that further?
It could.
If I sign a contract in October, it's gonna be for the clock out in October.
This is one contract.
But they're allowed this one.
But they'll have subcontractors working.
Same thing.
No, Superior.
Superior?
So
But-
we have the company already that's gonna do them?
But the benefit is they do operate their own asphalt plant, so they control that.
All right.
You'll lose some time during the winter months,
I understand.
rain and some cold, but
Yeah.
I would guess they had to factor that. You got some problems in there, yes.
Right.
And weather days.
Weather days.
As we discussed earlier, the commission had approved using up $4 million for spot repair, term bid, and we advertised the project, the bids coming in. And due to the cost over the budget, the city projected. And as we discussed earlier, this is definitely another discussion topic for the commission of how we want to move forward, or the framework of how we want to do the specs as it relates to another contract.
Okay.
Just for consideration, some additional projects that will be coming up. One is the Fondren Sidewalk project, which will do some landscaping, ADA compliance, and what else, Ronnie?
Just place on sidewalks.
The city received a $2 million grant from MDOT, which will go through the LPA process, and we would most likely ask for consideration for match for the project. The other is the Southwest Street Bridge, which is downtown, has been closed for about 6 months. We were able, along with West Haven and Caney Creek, that should not be a creek there, but it's West Haven Drive. Both of these projects sustained damage due to the March 10th storm. They were inspected by local FHWA liaison with the city and MDOT, and they have allowed the city to utilize MDOT's consultant services, and we would like to request to utilize the 1% funds to pay for the PE services, which would be reimbursed to the city at 80-20%.
West Haven Creek and Caney Creek.
Actually, that should be West Haven Drive.
West Haven Drive.
Yes.
This one project is $110,000.
It's actually 3. There's 2 box culverts, and if you ever drive south on Terry Road past Savannah and McClure, that 2-lane bridge, right on the east side, it sustained some damage to the retaining wall, and so they allotted some funds for us to get that repaired.
You say that's an 80-20 project.
Yes, sir.
If we approved $110,000, we'd actually be spending $20,000, $22,000, something like that. And the rest of it goes in that account
Yes, sir.
That we don't know.
that we don't know how it works. So,
The other is, we are in the design stage for the Robinson Road Bridge. We have talked with MDOT, hopefully trying to get that project advertised this year. We still have to do a field review with the LPA office, but we would like to go ahead for consideration that if we're able to do that, we would like to go ahead and ask for construction dollars to get that project going. Yep, 80/20.
and the total construction is estimated to be $1 million.
Yes, sir. The other is, along with infrastructure, we have received a number of calls as relates to corrugated metal pipes, claiming collapse in yards, not allowing for proper drainage off the roadways. The city does have a list that we can provide to the commission. But we do want to ask the commission to consider funding a pipe replacement project throughout the city. We can do like a citywide pipe replacement project in which we would go in and remove the collapsed pipes and replace them in order to improve the drainage. And this would be citywide. The other is, as we discussed earlier about the emergency watershed protection, the projects, one of them was Grove Park, the other two are Nimitz and Pleasant Avenue. We would like to ask for consideration up to $300,000 added to the amount that's already approved in year one for Grove Park to help fund those projects. This is a 75-25. But we will only get, this would fund, the city only received $183,000 from the NRCS. So that's where the 75-85 would come from. But if the cost, if the construction cost is over that amount, then we would like to ask for consideration to fund that. And that's also inclusive of the match for the $183,000. And the other would be for the second round, which further discussion will be needed for the year two streets.
Initial.
Hey, we got that money, so we don't even know about that.
Further discussion. Here too.
And the strike return bid, you come on.
Yeah, we need to have a term bid for striping. The APAC bid had all the paving, but did not have striping, so some of the roads that were repaid that had some yellow lines on it, those yellow lines have not gone back in. Internally, we don't have the machinery available or the crews to go and paint it in-house. So we would need to have a proper term bid for striping. This wouldn't be like the APAC where we have an estimated quantity. It would be per foot or per square yard, depending on the type of paint, similar to what other cities and counties do. Some of that would be paid for out of 1% funds to go back and paint the streets that we've already prepaid. Others would be maintenance issues coming out of our maintenance budget.
I realize this is all, most of this is stuff we can deal with after we have our working. But the striking term bid and even that pipe replacement looked to me like, why are we not getting in that business now that we're using our money to replace what would normally be coming out of the city budget money that we don't want? I mean, we're not supposed to be replacing money that we do. Surely we've been doing striping in the city before, and pipe replacement, it seems like that's just ongoing regular maintenance type things that would be. It's not like repaving Gallatin Street.
For 1% purposes, we need to stripe the streets that were paved with 1% money, like Maddox Road, like Veterans.
Arguably.
We need at least the yellow line. But internally right now, we've had a lot of retirements and some vacancies have gone unfilled, and our machinery is getting old. Our centerline paint machine is over 20 years old and pretty well cannot be repaired. And a new machine like that costs,
You had a lot of
Probably.
retirements, it seemed like that's how you can pay for the term being contract. I mean, it seems to me that that's getting into what is regularly just, I mean, the 1%, it all comes out of the same end result. I realize I'm paying out of this tax dollar or this tax dollar, I know that, but has the city not been doing striping?
we've done some striping, and we did the paint work in-house when we did the 2009 repaving program, and machinery that we have was not up to date, so we put paint down, it lasted a couple years.
I'm not arguing to go get a contractor to do it, but I'm still saying it's still the same budget pot, it seems like to me. And I'm just, enough of it. I mean, that's just my first thoughts on it. You can go into the work session and be talking about it. Just my running thought.
But like I also said, you'd have some 1% funds for the streets that were paved 1%. Traffic maintenance's own budget would use same term bid for streets that don't need repaving but need a fresh coat of paint like those repaved 6 years ago.
And if we hadn't repaved those others that we used 1% money on, would that street as it was before it was repaid need to be restriped anyway? If it was that bad, it probably needed restriping anyway.
Well, not necessarily.
In some places, there's nothing there to put the striping down on it, like,
Yeah, not necessarily. Some of the streets were rough looking, but the paint was okay. Now we have great asphalt, no paint. So we kind of done a little bit of a swap.
But I would say though, on the pipe replacement, it is a part of the city's infrastructure. And the only reason we're asking for consideration is we have a number of glass pipes through the city that cannot be adequately funded through the city's general fund. And this is an opportunity to make an impact on a lot of these residents who are affected by flooding because the water cannot get off to the street to the drainage ditch.
Let me ask you, on the pipe replacement,
Yes.
what's an average pipe? I mean, you talk about $700,000, is that gonna do 700 of them at $1,000 each, or 500? I mean, what's the pipe replacement?
We're basing it off of, we did this back in the early 2000s when I first got here. We allocated $340,000 when we had the budget to do it. And we were able,
Out of a regular city dollar budget, you done this?
yes, but we were able to replace maybe 10 to 12. You know, the average range would be somewhere between 25 to maybe 50 feet. Okay, contractor will come in, put the whole pipe, replace it. You know, fencing will be involved because most of these go through 2 homes. But all of that will be part of the cost in doing that. But it's an impact. Also, too, with those pipe replacements, there were some small stabilization projects. They were also included in there. So it's just an opportunity to take some of those funds and make an instant impact at some of these residents' homes. Just a thought.
All right. Anything else? So we need to, we'll poll for a time for a work session and see what's gonna work best for y'all, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Yes, sir.
Would you want to entertain, and I would not have a problem with making the motion if you want to entertain it, that this West Haven Drive at $110,000, the Robinson Road Bridge at $1 million, both of which will cost the city eventually only 20% of, as I understand it, but you wanted to get moving on it, that we'd be funding the whole funding the whole $110,000, as I understand it, but 80% of that comes back. You were talking about Robinson Road, right. What Charles was saying needed to move forward with MDOT.
Mm-hmm. That's $1 million.
And what?
Robinson Road is $1 million.
West Street, the West Haven County, and the Robinson are the MDOT emergency.
All right, I got West Haven, Robinson Road.
Southwest.
Southwest, okay, it's 110,000. It's an 80-20 thing too.
Yes, sir.
frankly, if we get an MDOT money at 80% of them, and that's 20,000 and 20,000 and 200,000.
It's worth it.
That's leveraging.
I mean, I think it's good leveraging. I don't mind loaning MDOT the money. I don't know whether our new members feel comfortable in wanting to vote to spending money. I don't want to go into a big major looking at projects, but those to me look like they're slam dunks. That I would make the motion that we add those to the list of projects that we have approved for funding as they're proposed here, the southwest of West Haven Drive and the Robinson Road on 80-20 match, and that it come out of it.
Okay.
That's second.
All right, motion and second, discussion.
I'll say this, I'm going to trust my colleagues here at the room, and I'll go along with it. I don't know if it's in absence of a director of public works or what, but I really feel like I'm flying by the seat of my pants. And with all due respect, I hope, Mr. Mayor, that there may be some type of support that we can get so that we can get advanced materials and really have a accurate picture of what's happening. And furthermore, I feel as if we need to somehow implement some accountability measures. Now, this is my first meeting to sit in on it, but there seems to be a lot of gnashing of teeth and concern over things being done appropriately or being followed up on as far as our contractors are concerned. So I would like for the minutes to reflect that it is imperative.
I'm going to make a motion to that effect too.
Yeah, and we got to have some type of administrative support so that we know which way's up.
Well,
I'm agreeing we got to make a motion.
what's been recommended is actually, for those of you who are new, is that you're gonna have your own one-on-one, much like some of the other members have had. So you get to sit down and get rebaptized more one-on-one with all of this. But today you just came in and got what you got. So you will have that opportunity for the support you're talking about.
Right, and that's nice, and I appreciate that. I look forward to having that one-on-one, but going forward, so that this gentleman is not thrown in front of the bus every time we have a meeting, I think someone needs to be accountable to the questions that are being asked in the follow-up, so that we can be as efficient with our time and the resources that we have. I think it's imperative. It's a big ask to have a local option sales tax, and I think everyone who lives here in the city is frustrated and concerned that the money is being appropriately put to good use. And I don't feel good about not having someone at the switch that I can call so-and-so and say, here's my question, when can you get back with me to an answer? So I mean, I hope you consider that. I know it's a tough budget year, but it's worth it.
His name is Jerry Smash.
Sounds good.
I don't think we get an introduction of staff.
I don't think we did either.
Call for question first on the motion. Then
Okay.
we'll do that.
Motion
All right.
second.
Any further questions or
I
comments?
have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
The Robinson Road Bridge, is that the place where you indicated there
Yes.
is construction, development
Yes.
activity? As it relates to, I think, a Taco Bell and all of that? And is my understanding correct about the intent of the motion, and that is that we will allocate the funding to proceed with this and be reimbursed from MDOT
That's correct.
for it? Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Actually, we'll go through the LFA process, but the approval will go through the FHWA. They're the ones who have determined that these are ER projects. So the actual funding reimbursement will go through LPA, but the actual agency that is allowing us to move forward is FHWA, Federal Highway Department.
And we are pretty much certain that they are going to reimburse us these funds if we move forward.
We have been assured by the liaison that the city would, if we follow all of the processes that are in place through the LPA. That is doing all field reviews,
Same processes for Fortification Street, Capitol Street, and it's kind of routine at this point at the office.
When we do this, and we say, yeah, we're gonna spend $1 million for Robinson Road, and it's gonna be there funded, I assume that still takes the city council approving spending the $1 million and approving the contract with MDOT, and then the contract with the contractor.
There will be, yeah, it'll be MOU, we'll have to bid out the construction just like any other road project.
MDOT doesn't take it over and run, is what I'm
Correct.
saying.
MDOT does reviews along the way, but
Okay.
they say it's our